This short video will show how to add a CobraNet SNMP driver. First of all, we have an Ateriotech CobraNet CO2 demo board here, so kind of a development board that has Ethernet ports and audio inputs and outputs. So we're going to try and control that. We can see here the demonstration utility shows the two devices. This is their IP address, 101 and 102. Together with their bundle assignments, and we're going to go and try and write a driver and some user interface to go and control those bundle assignments. So if we start with StarDraw Control and we go and add a product, we'll add a new manufacturer called Ateriotech, and it's a CO2 development board. Okay. Now we'll go and add a CobraNet port, and we can see on the drop-down list we have three different types of CobraNet ports: an Ethernet port, audio input, and audio output port. We'll choose the Ethernet port, and we can see the script allows you to go and override things like the community, which by default is public. This changes it to private, and the default IP address for this driver. And you can actually change this later on in the property grid on a per instance basis. Now note that it inherits from SNMP in port instance, and it's a CobraNet port. Well, that's all we'll do with that port at the moment. Now we're going to add an audio output port, and we'll make this a CobraNet audio output. And if we edit this, we'll see that this is very similar, except this inherits from an SNMP client port instance. Now, it's got some dummy code in here, which shows how to implement a sample function. Now, in SNMP, everything is an OID, as an object identifier, and it's usually this very long number which determines the specific function in the device that we're trying to control. Now this number can be retrieved from an MIB file, such as an MIB browser, and we can see here that we can scroll down and we can see Peak Audio CobraNet, and we can see RX channel for a receiver has this particular OID number. That's where we get that from here. And actually this is a transmitter, so it'll be that OID, and you can see it's just different by a 7 there. And because it's actually part of a table, we'll see that we add .1, .2, .3 for each of the different outputs, as we can see here. So we'll just define this as a constant string of our channel ID, and we'll go and define a private variable called channel, and we'll define a property called channel that will simply go and return the channel on the get, and then on the set it will actually call set SNMP integer with the channel OID with the value that's passed in for that channel. Now set SNMP integer is one of the functions that can be called from this function. You can go and call the unsigned integer, octet string, OID, null, counter 32, counter 64, timer ticks, IP address, and opaque. These are all the different types of values for an object identifier that you can set to an object identifier. Okay, so now we've got our property called channel. We now want to be able to go and retrieve that value. And we retrieve SNMP values through an override function on SNMP in. And this function is called whenever SNMP data comes in, and it passes in the object ID and the value that has changed. So first thing it should do is call the base on SNMP in, so that it can do any basic stuff in the base class. And we're going to have a switch, which is basically a glorified if statement, and we'll do a switch on the channel ID. And again, this channel ID has come on from here. So if it is our channel ID that's been passed in here, we will then go and do a bit of checking on this. First of all, we're going to see if the channel has actually changed, if the value that has come in. First of all, we'll cast it to an int, because we know it's an int. cast it to an int and check that it's not equal to our channel. And if it isn't equal, then there's been a change. We'll go and set the channel here to the value that's come in, and then we will go and fire an event that says on channel changed. And that is defined here and is marked as controllable so that we can see it in the StarDraw Control user interface. So that event will fire whenever any data has come in from an SNMP with this OID and the value has changed. So that's great. Now what we'll also do, this begin get SNMP, what we'll do is we'll set up a sequence of events. So when we've got some SNMP data in, we'll go and get the SNMP data again. So it'll just go around in a loop in the background on a separate thread to go and get any new values of the SNMP. And then finally, to kick this off, we will go and override when this port has been opened, and we'll just go and say begin get SNMP with this channel OID. And sometime later, the onSNMP call, onSNMP in function is called. We can catch it, possibly fire the event there, and then go and get it again. And then sometime later it will return. So, when that event fires, typically there will be an action which says go and get the channel to go and update it. So there we have our sample getting an SNMP object identifier value asynchronously. So let's see how we would actually use that. We'll just have an audio output. And now if I go and drag this on, connect the Ethernet port to there, I can expand this and actually see the IP address. It's 101. I'll leave that as the default. And we'll have a multi-position knob here, which goes and sets the source. And we'll say when we change that, we actually want to go and call and set the audio output channel, and we're going to set that to come from the multi-position knob value. And then finally, just to double check, we'll actually have some text which just shows, and we'll just delete the text at the moment, and we'll say when the device audio output on channel changed event occurs, we will go and call the label set text to come from the device CobraNet audio output 1 channel port. Great. So I think that's pretty much it. We'll go and run this. And we see the neg screen. And we will go and try and change it to case 1. And you can see here it goes and calls set SNMP1 to 1. It's also fired the on channel changed, and there we see the 1 has happened. And it happened a bit later while it was communicating with it and processing it. And that's a 2 and the on channel changed there. Everything seems to be working fine. Now to absolutely prove this, let's come back into the CO2 demonstration utility and we will go and refresh these values. And we can see here that this value is now 3 to match here. Now again, if I go and change this to 4 and then hit refresh, we can see that this has now changed to 4. Now if I come and change this back to 1 and then do a set, we will see that this text over here has changed to 1. So that you could have gone up to the unit and changed it, you could have used another piece of software to change it, but this software is continually monitoring the SNMP value and updating any values here, but you can also go and change it through the your own user interface. So, in just a few minutes, we've been able to write a new driver for CobraNet, accessing any object identifier, accessing any user OID we want. We've been able to asynchronously retrieve any values and constantly monitor the OID variable, as well as design some user interface to call that driver generate the executable and call it all within a few minutes. This is very powerful, very easy to use, very simple, powerful code. Thank you.